Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about Levi's Fondo. This was my first time at the event, so I didn't really know what to expect. And historically, the Fondo has been a long-running event that's been going on for about 16 years. It's located in Sonoma County in California. Absolutely beautiful place to ride this time of year. And starting last year, Levi, the race director, partnered with Bike Monkey, and they've really been trying to rejuvenate the road scene here in the U.S. Huge turnout this year. The women, I believe, had over 65, 70 elite riders, which is a great field. And for me, I wanted to attend and support the event, mostly because Levi implemented two major changes that I think are important. And so, the women had separate starts. We went 5 minutes after the men's race, and they also implemented a no draft rule, which was pretty awesome. Many of you know, if you follow me, that I personally decided this year not to attend any large-scale events or races that don't have separate starts. It's just, for me, it's not fun to race in those mixed events anymore, and also it's not safe. So it's just, something I personally don't really want to do. So let's just jump right into the race footage. You can see it's a very chill start. The course is 138 miles long with just under 1,400 foot of elevation gain. For any of you that are non-U.S. folk, that's 220 kilometers and 4,200 meters of vertical gain. So, quite a challenging course. The first 30 miles, however, is like pancake flat. And for reference, I averaged like 110, 115 watts for 30 miles. So very, very chill. At times, I felt like I was on a little recovery cafe spin with the gals, and kind of nice to chat with people. Very different from gravel because you can't normally sit in and soft pedal like this. Eventually there was a breakaway that formed of about 4 riders, and kind of all the main hitters, myself included, had no desire to chase that. We knew that the course throughout the entire day would kind of take care of that as the day went on. So that's kind of how the start went. After that first 30 miles, you enter the first climbing section, which is called King's Mill. This is about an hour-long section and climb. It's a beautifully wooded area. You've got some redwoods, and there's a lot of rolling pitches, and it's about 1,000 foot of gain in 10 miles. And at the start of that section, you can see Cecily Decker was on the front, Sarah Sturm was up there, and then in a pink kit, there's also a roadie, Kira, who she had just won the climber's jersey at Redlands the week prior. So for me, I had planned on being a bit savage this day because why not? And on the climbs, I had a simple goal. If it pitched up, I was going to the front to push the pace. People can't really sit in during that time, and figured, let's just get some suffering and good training in. After all, unbound is calling, they say. So that's what I did, and you can see in the video some of the breakaway riders. The first one we caught, she was not going very fast, and then eventually we did catch up to Emily Newsom and Danny Strobsbury as well. It's interesting because they did join our group at that time, but didn't really see them after the descent or on the next climb after that. So the main group at this point kind of stayed consistent throughout the rest of the day. There were a few riders getting dropped and rejoining after the descents, but for the most part, it was myself, Lauren Stevens, Aaliyah from Fount, Sophia, Gwen Gibson, Axel, LDC, Cecily, Sarah Sturm, Alexis, and another Sophia. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. Because it's quite long, and I don't think U.S., but I believe this is her rookie race season, and she had a hell of a start. I know she got initially dropped on Kings Mill, but she caught back up, and she stayed in that lead group and ended up finishing 10th. So killer day for her. After Kings Mill, there's some descending, then there's some rolling sections, and like I said, the descents would at times separate some riders, particularly LDC and Sturmy, but they almost always bridge back, which is great. And I think a large part because our group was not really motivated to work together in any of the flat sections, so it was a lot of soft pedaling. I think people were really tired from the pace on the climbs, and in road, you can just sit in a lot more during those sections too. A lot of yo-yoing there and effort and pace, and just allowing that group kind of to stay together most of the day. Yeah, so then after Kings Mill, you enter another climb called Skaggs, and Skaggs was really kind of up my jam. This was my type of climb. At the bottom of it, you have a 20-minute climb that's like very steady and fun. It was about 1,500 feet and 5 miles for that initial part, which our group did in about 20 minutes. Don't have footage of this, but you can take a quick glance at the power file, see that effort was just north of 300 watts for that time. And then after that steady portion, you kind of come up to these steep rollers for a bit, and then another climbing section. So in total is about 50 minutes. It was 15 miles, which ended up being about 3,000 foot of ascending during that time. Then after that, you descend down Skaggs, which is kind of a nice descent, not very technical, and kind of straightforward. So I had planned to kind of be towards the back of the group, which you'll see in this footage here, but there were definitely some gaps that were opening up and didn't really want to do the extra work to close those, so tried to make my way up. And you can also see in the footage that the descending here was never really like all the way down. You kind of go up and down. And so thankfully during recon I had noticed that, just because sometimes if you do an hour-long climb, you kind of want to just check out for a little bit, but not on this course. You have a lot of up and down and some power that still needs to be applied even in the descending section. So yeah, after Skaggs descent, you're about 80 miles in, and we then entered the only feed where you could have outside support. And I don't know how others felt, but it felt very short, and I think our speeds coming into this were very fast. And honestly, you never know how feeds are going to go, if someone's going to attack or, what's going to happen. So you try to get through them as fast as you can. And I remember I grabbed a musette, and I had 2 bottles and a flow gel flask in there as well. And then I saw the end feed sign, and I knew, I was like, oh man, I have to dump my musette. Otherwise I got to carry this with me. And that fabric's not exactly breathable. So yeah, I kind of had a choice and just grabbed 1 bottle and my flow gel. I didn't have time to grab the other bottle so that I could dump my musette before the end of that feed. So that was a bit of a bummer. After this section, after the feed, there was some footage of me and Gwen, and then also Sophia. And I had several people ask about this. With Gwen, I was just simply removing her safety pin. I guess it had come unclipped and was like stabbing in her back. She was like actually bleeding. So I just took the safety pin out for her there. And then with Sophia, a lot of people were commenting on, what was going on there and kind of criticizing her. But the reality is, she was complaining to the motos and trying, and, I'd like to provide some context to what she was trying to do, but she was trying to keep the race fair by enforcing riders to not throw their musette bags out of the designated feed. Cecily, I don't even know if she knew that rule. She probably hasn't really done any road events. So she gave her feedback to a moto, which was shown on the broadcast. And then also Lauren kind of did the same thing. She initially stuffed it in her jersey and then eventually gave it to the moto. And that's what Sophia was upset about. She was kind of talking to all of us, and it's a 7+ hour event. Everyone's carrying their trash and following the same rules. Anyways, for those criticizing, what that appeared to look like, that's just some context that she was trying to keep the race, somewhat fair and enforce those rules. Yeah, so we're going to jump ahead now to geysers, which is the last climb of the day. And this was another hour effort, and this climb is pretty rolly for the first 45 minutes. There's some unique gravel sections to the climb as well. And let's just say even the pavement sections weren't exactly smooth, and I would consider those a bit rowdy too. Initially, I camped myself near the back of the group, knowing that the rollers would somewhat keep things together. But eventually, on one of the descents, I found myself at the front, and it turns out I can descend pretty well. So I looked back, there was a gap. Hadn't really planned on going that early, but I just kind of felt right to go. So stepped on the gas and created a gap, and shortly after, Lauren Stevens eventually bridged back up to me, which I thought was perfect, given we still had 25 miles of headwind to get through, after that climb. And given how poorly the group had been organizing throughout the day, I kind of felt a move here would likely take the wind if you could descend ahead of the group and have the power to keep it steady to the finish. So unfortunately, my Insta360 camera died. So from here on out, this is basically filler footage that you'll see. So what you hear me talking about won't exactly line up. But then also at the same point in the race, I started to have cramps. I didn't panic, but I was slightly concerned. And then as the pitches went up on geyser, and you can see this in my cadence file that I'll show, there's a right-hand turn on geysers, and then it really gets steep. And I knew during my recon this was by far the most important place the whole day to have power, and I kind of was planning on that and ready for it. But then when I stood up to respond, because Lauren also knew that and applied more power here, I had like the worst hamstring cramp occur. I've never had cramps in a race. This was very new for me. But it was so bad I could barely move the pedals, and you can see that in a power file or the cadence file. Just like I was just trying not to walk, and it was a bit demoralizing because the rest of the field passed me and kind of went around me, and honestly I was like paperboying some parts because I just couldn't stand, and yeah, it was just not pleasant. So honestly I was focused on not walking and getting to the top of the climb because I knew the descent on geysers would allow some reprieve and rest. So yeah, eventually I got to the top, and at that point I think I was like 11th because everyone in the group had passed me. And but yeah, I still had like 25 miles of headwind, and I knew if I could just keep like a steady endurance or low tempo, then maybe that would catch some people that completely cracked. And yeah, that did work. I ended up passing Sophia V and Sarah Sturm and Alexis to somewhat salvage an 8th place finish. So not exactly the result I would have liked, but learned a lot of valuable lessons and saw some glimmers of fitness and where my potential is at, which is always good to see. And yeah, overall, I think the event was great. They had live streaming, which a lot of people tuned in, and I think that's a really cool progression. And I also think a lot easier to cover road events because there's not a lot of gravel terrain, and it's much safer for the motos to be following across the whole day. So that was cool to see that they were able to do that, and then also provided the athletes with some of the footage too, which we did use, and very thankful for them on that as well. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. That was Levi's. Hell of a day and very fun event. Highly recommend if you are able to get the chance. Very, very challenging course for sure. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel and comment to keep these rolling.